Just need a whistle. Was that you? That was impressive. That's impressive.
This is the regular board meeting of the Village of Northfield. It is Tuesday, October 15th. It is 7:45. We are going to call the meeting to order, and Holly, can you call the roll?
Trustee Orr?
Is Trustee Orton not here?
He's walking in, right?
Oh,
Just go ahead and skip past him, Holly, and keep going.
Trustee Whitaker.
here.
Trustee Fowler.
Here.
Trustee Mendrick.
Here.
Trustee Gallen.
Here.
Trustee Dengis.
Here.
Here.
All right, before I open the floor to public comment, I'd like to make a comment about Chief Lustig's desire to retire. I'm going to read this because it's important, very important to me. I'd like to make a comment about Chief Lustig's desire to retire. We have heard from residents who are concerned that Bill has been forced to retire. I can assure you that those rumors are not factual. Chief Lustig has not been forced out of office by the village manager, the village president, any of the trustees, or anybody from Northfield. Chief Lustig voluntarily retired on his own accord and desire, and in fact, he executed a voluntary retirement agreement memorializing the voluntary nature of his retirement. Prior to that decision, there were circumstances that the village is not at liberty to share that led to the discussion regarding his voluntary decision to retire. Chief Lustig has long been a fixture in Northfield and will be missed by many, including myself. On behalf of this village board, we express appreciation for his decades of service to this village, and to its residents wish him nothing but the best. One more thing. Since Chief Lustig's announcement was retirement announcement came forth, we have received a number of ideas from residents about the best way to honor Bill's 24 years as chief of police. In order to find the most fitting way to recognize Bill, I've asked Trustee Whitaker, thank you, Tom, to head up a small group to explore ideas. As he assembles this group for this important task, we welcome your ideas. With those suggestions can be emailed to chief@northfieldil.org, and Trustee Whitaker will share the suggestions with his group. For all of you who have already offered suggestions, we will make sure that they are included. Tom, is there anything that I've missed?
No, but I would be remiss if I didn't say anything about my best friend, Bill. Bill, when we moved to Northfield in 1978, growing up was a fixture. He was my crossing guard at at St. Philip's at Half and Old Willow. I was his toad. As we grew older, our friendship grew stronger, and he guided me through life a lot. And as a matter of fact, I was sitting right outside this door, which used to be the fire station, and Bill had an ingenious idea of having serial numbers or VIN numbers engraved and etched into car windows. And he was on duty. I think he was still a sergeant at the time. And he said, "Tom, you got to come down here. I got someone I got to introduce you to." And I walked out, and there was a beautiful girl. That beautiful girl is my wife. I've been married to her for 30 years this July. I've been together with her for almost 36 years. And I don't know how to thank him, except for every day he apologizes to her for introducing her to me. But he also, he's my confidant, and I know we had significantly difficult times in the village in the last couple of years. And every morning at 6:15, my phone would ring, and it was Bill. And we'd debrief, and we'd try and figure things out, and talk each other off the ledge and get through one day at a time. And unfortunately, here we are today. I think he's left an impact on myself forever. He's left an impact on my family forever. I would walk into his office and my sons were on his window at their graduations. And those are things that you don't see from a police chief every day. But I think what's even more ironic, and I was trying to see if my father-in-law could come tonight and he couldn't, but my father-in-law hired Bill as a police officer when he started here in Northfield. So not only was my father-in-law the person who hired Bill, Bill was the person who introduced me to my wife. So I see that Bill's wife Jane is here, his kids are here, her father-in-law's here, his brother's here, and I'm sad that Bill's not here. I can't say that the sensitive person that he is, I understand why he's not, but it's tough, it's an era, and I know as much time and as long as I've known Bill and how much he's done for me, which is huge, and the impact he's had on my life, he's done for everybody who's grown up in Northfield. And whether it's the kids in grade school when he did Officer Friendly that can reminisce about that today, to kids that he would meet on Halloween a year ago. He's had a positive impact on public safety. He's made in other communities and other towns, police officers were always, the kids were scared of him, the community was not confident, but I think Bill was the type of person who gave true meaning to the opposite of that and made us all feel comfortable, knew that he was protecting our town, and ultimately I'm sad to say, he put the police department before his family. And it takes a really unique character to do that. And I think we as a board know that that's who Bill is. We've seen his passion at our board meetings. And I think that, we're here to do anything we can. I specifically am. I'm hoping to go to lunch with him tomorrow. So I want to thank everybody who's here to support Bill, whether you're sad, angry, happy, have something to say. I hope if you do say something that's negative, you can also share something that's positive. So I'm sorry I took longer than I probably should have, but it's a sad thing.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you.
I would also like to, share a brief thought honoring Bill Lustig. They say everyone is replaceable. Bill Lustig is not replaceable. There's very few people in life that you can say they're not replaceable, but Chief Lustig has been a fixture in this community. He's been a long-term friend of mine. He's helped me through many things. I won't go as long as Tom because Tom said quite a few outstanding things, but I echo Tom's sentiment, except he didn't set me up with my wife. But he's an awesome person, and you can always count on him. It's awesome when he would be driving by and stop for a minute, roll down the window. He always had time for everyone. He was the most dedicated public servant. And again, I've been in public service for 45 years, and I've been in a lot of communities and seen a lot of people and worked with a lot of police officers. He is the most dedicated, honorable, trustworthy, incredible person, and he took everything to heart. He was just an incredible, and is an incredible. And I'm glad to see that his family's here. I'm sorry he can't be here, but obviously, Tom, if you need any help, I would love to work with you on this committee because I share your passion, and having known him for such a long time, there's no words to express my sadness and my grief at his not being able to continue. And we all have our day where our careers must end, but it's a sad day for Northfield, but it's a happy day for Bill and his family that they can now move on. So Jane and your family, thank you very much for giving Bill to us for his entire career here. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. As in all of our public meetings, we give time for the public to say whatever they'd like to the village trustees. Any have a comment?
I'm just trying to collect myself. I'm Dr. Dan Lustig. I am the police chief, William Lustig's brother. Wow, I'm just stunned. I'm stunned. Speaking as someone who intimately knows Chief Lustig, I can honestly tell you that for the past 44 years, Chief Lustig has spent the whole of his professional career with the village driven by passion to ensure the safety of this community. His whole career has been guided by one personal goal: to make the village of Northfield safe for its residents, its children, and its visitors. During this time, I believe Bill has gotten to know many of the residents of the village by personally attending birthdays, weddings, and yes, funerals. Something he did so that no resident of the village would feel unseen or uncared for. Because he did care. For me and for many of the residents of this village, Chief Lustig was a symbol of strength and kindness. His job here was 24/7, a demand he met by moving his wife and children to this village, which brought him even more into the fabric of this community. Bill never complained about his job. He never complained when residents would simply drive over to the house because he needed help or wanted assistance in resolving some village issue. He had an open door and an open phone policy, and the residents of the village knew it and benefited from it. In May of this year, Bill suffered a medical emergency, which required that he be on leave from his job as police chief. While on leave, he worked hard to secure medical approval to resume his duties. While his physician cleared him to return on a part-time basis, the village received a report indicating he should not yet return to full-time duties. Bill learned of this report's conclusion on August 9th. When he was summoned to the village's manager's office, he was devastated. At this meeting with the village manager and the village HR director, the village manager told him that there was no path for Bill back to his position as chief of police for Northfield. He handed him 2 draft retirement letters to choose from, informing him that he must make a decision by Monday concerning his retirement. That would be 3 days. To say this startled Chief Lustig is an understatement. After 44 years of an unblemished record, he was told it was over, nothing else. The village's ending of the chief's career seemed so final and, frankly, against the law that I recommended he retain an attorney to represent him. Even while his attorney was trying to negotiate the terms of a voluntary retirement, which is on the agenda tonight, the village abused its power in the most basic of ways. The village initially refused to allow Bill to keep his cell phone number he has had for years in the fear that residents would continue to call him, as if you all forgot to know what 911 is. The village refused to allow Bill access to his office to pack up his personal belongings or say goodbye, or say a respectful goodbye to those he's worked with for years. And to add insult to injury, the village demanded all of his badges that he's earned for the past 44 years that is mounted in a frame in his home back. Back. This shameful treatment is at odds with the glowing comments the village made in its press release announcing the chief's retirement. Too bad the village did not treat the chief in a manner consistent with its public announcement of his retirement. I know I'm his brother, and some of you may think my comments are colored by my love for Bill, but I want you to know that I think the representatives of the village of Northfield who engineered the chief's retirement should be ashamed of themselves. Their actions aren't worthy of the chief, nor of the village residents that they are employed or elected to represent. I truly hope you review this agreement with the professionalism that he deserves and more. Thank you.
My name is Jim Bodman. I live on Drury Lane in Northfield, and I've lived in this lovely little village for 60 years, which isn't as long as some of you, but for me it's a pretty long time. I met Bill originally when he walked into what we called the ghost room in our home and asked for permission to marry my little girl. And that was one of the luckiest things that ever happened to me. He is a dear, sweet, and wonderful person. Greg, I heard what you read. It was apocryphal. There was nothing in that that reflected reality. Nothing. I couldn't agree with what Danny said more energetically than I do. To give you a cogent example, and I don't want to bore everybody, but I've got 100 examples that I could give you about the way this young man, he's not so young man, this middle-aged man has been treated by this village over the course of the last 4 or 5 months. I was with him in Florida, and Bill isn't perfect. He's not as good as he was a couple of years ago, to be very honest with you, and it's not a secret. I think everyone knows it. He had a medical emergency that made it difficult for him to fulfill his job. We've been pushing him to retire for a couple of years, and he just didn't want to do it because he identified with this role and with this village, and he loved most of the people sitting in this room right now. I was in Florida with him, and he said, "Jim, I don't know what to do. I'm not allowed to go back into my office." Now, could you imagine saying to Bill Lustig that he's not allowed to go back into his office to collect his own personal effects? They didn't trust him to do it. Excuse me, we didn't trust Bill to go back into his own office to collect the things that he owned. Instead, they were put in 2 cardboard boxes and dropped on his doorstep when he was in Florida with me. And he got home, I walked in the house with him, and he sat down and he cried. He said, "This is my stuff, and this is in a cardboard box." After, was it 45 years that he's worked for this village? Something like that. I don't know who in this group is responsible for this. I don't think it was corporate, because I know a lot of you guys really love him, and you wouldn't have agreed with any of this. You would have fought it. But someone here is responsible for it. And be careful what you wish for, because sometimes things don't work out the way you want them to work out. This guy is totally loved by the people in this community, and no one knows how badly he's been screwed around. I think they're going to find out. If I was sitting in your shoes, would be ashamed of myself. Thank you.
Wow, Carol Ritchell, 811 Hap. Thank you for, my goodness, so many things we didn't know. Thank you. Wow. I wrote a whole bunch, and what I started out to say was I would like to address Chief Lustig's retirement and begin by reading a portion of the October 10th press release announcing his retirement. Quote, "Throughout his career, Bill has been highly regarded and respected by both our community and the neighboring police departments. He is a man of great integrity with the remarkable personal ability to support and connect with everyone. He has been a role model on how to create a caring community." Wow, guys, pay attention to that one. "That all Northfield residents have enjoyed and expect. He has been and will remain a Northfield treasure." That was Don Whiteman, past village president, from 1997 to 2005. I felt heartbroken when I read that Chief Lustig was not even given the chance to return and bid farewell to his colleagues. Who made that decision to deny him the opportunity to return and bid farewell? Was it you, Patrick, as village manager? Was it you, Greg, as village president? You, Mallory, as village legal counsel? All of you? How is it that this is how you treat one who has been regarded as a village treasure, quote unquote? one who has been, I'm going to cry, one who has been an integral part of our community for over 43 years. Shame on all of you for your lack of simple human decency. Please don't tell me that I'm failing to appreciate potential legal ramifications. Part of me feels sorry for each of you. Sorry that in your book, denying Bill a farewell opportunity was all right. We read of similar occurrences in corporate America. We don't expect this kind of thing to happen in a teeny little village of less than 6,000 to a man who was so dearly beloved. God, what on earth happened to do unto others? Thank you.
Thank the board members for the opportunity to speak for a few minutes. I feel I've kind of earned the authoritative right to talk for a few minutes about Bill and possibly give you a little different perspective that you might not have heard from Tom and a lot of people who know me here, quite frankly. My name's Howard Bulchink. I had the, good to see you, Tom, saw a lot of my board members here, my PTO members here. I had the God-given great luck of my life to be honored to be the third superintendent and principal over at Sunset Ridge School. And Patrick Kenilworth and Sunset Ridge, we had principal and superintendent, and I loved being superintendent, and I would never, ever give up being principal. But you can tell the old people are now gone, and those days are long gone. When I read Bill was retiring, he and I started about the same time, and I'll only speak for a couple of minutes, but he was a much younger, 10 years younger than me. And I got to know him right away because Chief Klatsko, for some of us who may know Chief Klatsko, he was like my grandfather, you know, and my father, George, was like a brother almost, and Bill was, you know, next in line, like the son. But I worked with Bill ever since the day he started because he was the officer friendly, which Tom mentioned. Officer friendly, I mean, it's kind of a euphemism, but officer friendly. But Bill took that job so seriously. I mean, he did his master's thesis on, I left it in my car, of course. He did his master's thesis, which is in my library, on how to make kids safer, how to get to know and respect your people in your village and your law enforcement. And you see, Bill, who I worked with very closely, he taught our children not to run from the police, but to run to the police. He taught our children not to be afraid of the police, but he taught them to be afraid for the police, because Bill taught them what policemen do, how we keep the community safe. And anybody who knows anything about having kids and being responsible for kids, and now a lot of my kids are board members here too, for that matter. Now you're feeling a little old. But there's nothing more important than safety. If you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, safety, security. And with kids, it's not just that they are safe, it's just that they feel safe. You can't learn really well or learn the right things unless you actually feel safe. And that's what Bill did for the 27 years that I worked with him. 27 years, I loved my job. I loved working with Bill. And Bill, he only got angry with me once. I've never seen this man angry ever, because he was always too busy doing the right things. He was always doing the best things for kids. And one time in my younger days, when Tracy maybe knew me without my gray hair, the kids came running in my office, Dr. B, they're stealing our bikes. Well, I grew up in the city of Chicago, and nobody steals our bikes. And that was the Chicago people. By the way, I just live right over the border. But so I ran after them, and well, that was a mistake. And two things happened. One, Bill yelled at me, which when somebody yells at you, like your wife, mine of 52 years, doesn't happen that often. It really takes you to heart. And then when that could talk, I hope they're not here because they can find the article, School Chief Gives Chase. And when asked why I ran after him, the Winnetka said, well, which I did say, I just get so darn mad when they steal our bikes. Not the most intelligent thing I've ever said, but that was the only time Bill got mad. Bill used to just tell me to be quiet when I would tell him, one more minute here, I would tell him, Bill, you remind me, you're the second coming of Jim Clarkson. Everybody knows Jim Clarkson from Clarkson Park. And if you've been around and are old, you... Don't say old. Yeah, I better be careful. I also have to go home. Jim retired on June 30th, 1980. It was one day before I started. But I begged Jim to be one of my substitute teachers. And Jim, of course, said, of course I will be. He was one of my two subs. And trust me, you get to know somebody. I took all the sub calls for years from teachers who were sick or other people or staff. And when I would call Jim at 5:30 or 6 in the morning and say, Jim, he'd go, Howard, I don't even need to know who's sick. What can I do? How can I help? And that's Bill. Whenever I talk to him, whether it was 2 in the morning or 2 o'clock at night, and those calls exist in 27 years, he was always there, always coming by, always doing what was right. And I've taught 150 graduate classes now. I just retired with Professor Emeritus. And I teach my students, never say the word never unless you can back it up, or the word always. And I can tell you, in my 27 years, Bill was always there for our kids, always. And he never did anything that would be inappropriate or disrespectful, or never did anything to keep anything less than the best interest of our kids in mind. And those who know me here, I saw my board president a little while ago. Fred Googler used to be on your board too, my board president for 8 years. People who know me know that I love my job, and I don't know anyone, quite frankly, maybe other than Bill, who loved his as much as me. So I really appreciated reading those kind words that were mentioned in the information that went out. And I thank you for the opportunity to share a perspective of 27 years with Bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Howard.
Kathy Estabrook, 1620 Mount Pleasant. I'm not going to even talk about Bill Lustig because I will burst out crying. So I'm going to take a different route here. I am going to say that he is the jewel of the North Shore, and he's our jewel. Give me a second. 45 years of an illustrious career. Nobody does it better. Or should I say nobody does it any better now. I'm not going to dwell on the treatment that has been happening to this poor man. I believe you've heard it, but I want to focus on where we go from here. We've been discussing succession planning for a very long time. A very important discussion to have, extremely important in businesses. Our village actually has 2 departments that have inherent succession planning, and that's the police department and fire and rescue. In this scenario, the deputy chief is next in line for the position of chief. Our deputy chief, Mike Utensky, has been with this force for 20 years. He's grown up in our department, and his culture, our culture, is ingrained in him. It's hard enough to attract potential candidates for police departments these days. We've certainly experienced this in the last few years. And of course, as you know, it's even harder for a smaller department where advancements aren't as plentiful as in larger departments. In order to attract potential officers, they need to see that we groom, promote from within. It's even more important that we show our current force that we believe in them and their succession. We certainly don't want to create a morale issue. It's my sincere hope that this village does the right thing and promotes Mike Krutensky to the position of Chief of Police of Northfield, a job he truly deserves and for which he has been expertly groomed.
Anyone else? Thank you all. Seeing none. Moving on. Next item.
Excuse me, President Lomas, I'm sorry. I actually would like to take a moment to recognize two members of our fire rescue department, Lieutenant Dave Johnson and Captain Cody Regan, who are both career firefighters on other departments but also work here. They were called out on September 25th, 2024 at the discretion of the governor. Also, the Illinois Emergency Management Agency and the Office of Homeland Security, Mavis Swiftwater team from the Illinois Task Force 1 and Illinois Water Rescue 1 were activated to provide critical emergency support in anticipation of Hurricane Helen's expected landfall. The team was deployed to perform swiftwater and flood search and rescue in the state of North Carolina. I'm going to quote Mavis: "These highly trained personnel are equipped to navigate hazardous conditions resulting in heavy rainfall and flooding. This past Friday, Water Rescue 1 successfully returned from North Carolina after their critical deployment in response to the devastating effects of Hurricane Helene. Their humanitarian and rescue efforts made a significant impact on both local agencies and the communities they serve during this challenging time. I would like to, and the board, I'm sure, express our deepest gratitude and appreciation for the dedication and professionalism and selflessness demonstrated by both Lieutenant Johnson and Captain Regan, along with all the members of the Illinois Task Force 1, Illinois Water Rescue 1.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Approval of bills and disbursements. May I have a motion to approve the bills and disbursements from September 1st through September 30th, 2024?
So
Motion to
moved.
approve.
Do we have a second? Who is,
Second, whoever wants to.
thank you.
Switch back.
Patrick, can you go through this?
Sure. Per normal process, attached to your agenda is an outline of the bills and disbursements for the month. Included in those bills and disbursements are those payments made for personnel costs related to ongoing salaries and payroll. There are a number of items that I have highlighted to call to your attention, and I'm flipping through to get to the proper page in the packet where they are. The first you see is on page 18 of your packet that has to do with something that I'm getting old enough I cannot see without zooming the screen. Oh, our digital backup system. This is something that we are deploying an ongoing update of this system to ensure that all of our files are digitally backed up. So if there would happen to be a problem in the village, we have the ability to retrieve our records without interruption. And I believe that may have been the only item I had highlighted. Nope, on page 25 is another item for replacing the chlorine system. That's something previously approved by the village board. That work is either done or in process. And aside from that, I have nothing else to point out on your bills and disbursements.
Great, thank you, Patrick. Any questions from the board? Any comments or questions from the public? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Consent items, omnibus vote. Are there any items that any board member would like to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, will the deputy clerk please read the consent agenda items into the record?
There are 4 consent items. The first is the approval of minutes from the September 17th, 2024 meeting. The second is the approval of the village board meeting schedule for 2025. The third is the approval of a truth in taxation resolution for the 2024 tax levy. And the fourth is the authorization to approve a contract with Chicagoland Paving Contractors for the 2024 pavement patching program in an amount not to exceed $59,179.
Thank you, Holly. May I have a motion and a second to approve the
So moved.
consent agenda items?
Second.
Thank you, Tom. Are there any comments and questions from the board? Any comments and questions from the public? Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Jengus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Number 5, thank you, Holly. May I have a motion to ratify the execution of a retirement agreement with Bill Lustig?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. After 24 years serving as our chief of police, Bill Lustig has retired from the village. The village trustees and I have authorized entering into a retirement agreement with Chief Lustig in recognition of his many years of service to our community. The agreement has been executed and ratification of that action by this board has been requested. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
I just want to make one comment. First of all, I was very moved by everything that everyone said about Bill, and I know a lot of those people have left. I've known Bill not nearly as long as everybody. I've only been in town 10 years, but I've had some interactions with him. Everything from coyotes to explosives to anything. And he's coming to my house each time to talk about things. But I guess I want to just remember, it was just a few months ago, and we came around to his update. And he gets up from there, and he has a big metal shield, and I'm sure the fellow board members remember this. And he walked over there, and he held it up with two hands, and he said, "This is what we use in Northfield if there's an active shooter. And if there's an active we're going in, and this is what we're using." And I thought it was the most powerful display. So they tell you, show, don't tell. This was our police chief doing two things, showing us, A, how he does his job, but reassuring the community, because there are communities out in America that wonder what their police would do. And the chief told us what they would do. So I thought that was such a powerful thing. And again, it was him doing his job, but it was just such a surprise. I mean, I think we were all kind of stunned. But I think if anyone has earned what Bill has, but I just wanted to remind us of that moment. And it wasn't that long ago that he did that, but I thought it was just a beautifully powerful moment.
Thank you, Barnaby. Anybody have any questions or comments from the board? Any questions or comments from the public? Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Abstain.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Jengus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the fiscal year 2024-25 village budget to grant authorization for the purchase of the Lagoon Winnetka crosswalk equipment?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Melissa, do you have the background on this?
I sure do. So as the board is aware, we are working towards the completion of the Winnetka Lagoon Crosswalk project. The first item on the agenda is the adoption of an ordinance amending the budget, and the second is the authorization to approve the purchase of the equipment. As the board is well aware, we have been working on this for a while. The board identified this as a priority public safety project, and we've been working on it for over a year and a half. We are currently waiting for the final permit approval from Cook County, and we anticipate receiving approval any day now. So in preparation for that approval, we are seeking approval from the board in an amount not to exceed $14,000 to purchase the equipment, so the order can be placed immediately upon permit approval. The county has been very finicky through this process and has changed the specifications for the equipment a few times, so we don't want to purchase that equipment until we get the final approval from the county on that permit. A portion of the proposed project was included in the current budget, but due to delays with Cook County, the equipment was not purchased in the prior fiscal year as planned. So this will require a budget amendment of the streetscape project line item in the capital improvement budget from $347,616 to $367,853. The sign provider estimates a month-long lead time for equipment delivery, and the installer is ready to install as soon as we have the equipment in hand. We understand this is a priority for the board, and we are doing everything in our power to move it forward as quickly as possible. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the board?
I just wanted, Flip?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
No, I just was going to say, it's crazy how long this project has taken. And I think I look at, when we first were on the board together, we went out there and met with the county. And I mean, it's 6 years, almost 6 years?
5.
That this project's taken, and it's great to see that it's coming to reality.
I just want to thank Patrick Brennan and.
It's my turn.
No, it's not.
It's Tracy's turn.
Because
Go ahead.
Because I really want to thank you, Charlie, for jump-starting this project again. And I know it's taken longer than you had ever hoped that it would, and it's had its share of wrinkles. But, you know, hopefully, maybe mid-February, when it's 20 below, we'll be out there having some sort of ribbon cutting for this
Better not be
crosswalk.
mid-February. Better be sooner.
But we will be cutting a ribbon.
Thank you for that, considering that the other day, I didn't know Don was going to make those comments, but I was crossing the road where that crosswalk's going to be, and I looked this lady right in the eye, and I was crossing the road, and all of a sudden she sped up, and I was making a left-hand turn from Winnetka Avenue from Lagoon onto Winnetka, going east, and I was like, and I think she actually it may have hit the gas instead of the brake, because then she stopped after I dove across the road and barely made it. And literally, it's the closest I've been to getting hit since I was a little kid. So it was a frightening moment, and I'm thinking, man, if we had the crosswalk button here, this wouldn't even come close to happening, as I expressed to Patrick Brennan earlier today when I talked to him about some other issues. So thank you for helping also try to push this. Thank you to the board to try to push this. Melissa and I and Patrick and previously Tim Frenzer and everyone else has been working on this. God, I hope it is in by December 31st. So on New Year's Eve, we can cross the street and the weather doesn't cause any other problems. But again, thank you for all your support. And this is something that I get asked all the time. When's it going to be installed? So it's an arduous process with the county. So thank you all.
Any questions and comments from the public?
Thank you, Charlie. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you.
Now we got to vote on it.
Well, hopefully there's a few more. And hopefully there's a few more of these that we can get. And I know with the Skokie Valley Trail and talking to Melissa, there's one scheduled for a couple of locations. I've also talked to Tracy about a location on Bosworth, which is another county road. So unfortunately, like President Lungmas said, we have too many county roads, because if you go to Winnetka, they're popping up like dandelions where they install them themselves. So hopefully there's a few more locations that we can see this through, because they're not that expensive when you do the work. Thank you.
And just to clarify that on the table with the motion is both parts A and B of this item. One is approval of the ordinance. 2 is authorization for us to purchase the equipment.
Do we have to have another motion for the second part? Okay.
No. But we do need a supermajority on this vote. So clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Absolutely.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Okay.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Why not? No, that's a yes.
Thank you, Holly. May I have a motion to approve a resolution authorizing an intergovernmental agreement with Northbrook for disconnecting territory? Did I miss some?
What?
Yeah, I think my
Purchasing drones.
So number 7 on the agenda is authorization for the village staff to proceed with purchase of drones from Cloud City Drones, an
Mine is
estimated
wrong.
amount of $15,300. We may have had
So
your
did I-
agenda incorrect.
Is it
Motion to
swap-
approve the
7, 8?
drone purchase.
Second.
Great. Mike Kutensky is here to give us the background on this.
Thank you, President Lungmas. We had The board generously gave us $25,000 towards the purchase of drones in this fiscal year. This was a project that police and fire worked on jointly. Lieutenant Matt Hubner from the fire department and Corporal Steve Malinowski from the police department are both FAA certified drone pilots, and they did some very exhaustive research on different options. They settled on recommending 2 different drones. One of them is a larger drone that's capable of carrying a small payload. It can, for example, fly over, like the Skokie Lagoons, drop a life preserver to somebody in need. It can carry other equipment for fire rescue. That the larger drone would probably be more suited to fire service. The smaller of the 2 is much more portable, easily transported in the trunk of a squad car. That can be kind of quickly deployed for the search of a missing person, fleeing suspect. The drones are really, really important tools now for police and fire. They allow, for example, for firefighters, I'm sorry to step on the chief's toes here, they would allow firefighters to survey a scene that is potentially very dangerous from a safe distance. They could be very useful also for other village departments, for example, surveying storm damage, and even, photographing different areas and taking measurements from an aerial viewpoint. As I said, the original budget amount was $25,000. We're seeking about $15,300. We also recently learned that State Senator Julie Morrison was able to secure $15,000 for drone purchases from each police department in her district. So we will be eligible for that. There may be some additional equipment that will need some computer equipment for processing the video and the photos that come from the drones. And there may be some other training costs that we would seek approval for down the road. None of those costs would exceed the original budgeted amount. We would still fall within that $25,000.
Recently saw Julie Morrison and thanked her again for these grants that helped us out. So,
yeah, absolutely.
It's great that we've got kind of studied the 2 different models that you are ordering, and little guy in me said, they're very cool. How many guys are you going to train to operate these things?
We hope eventually to have at least 4 or so officers at the police department, just so that we can be assured that at almost any time, for the most part, we could have somebody who could deploy quickly.
Great.
Yeah.
Any other questions from the board?
Just a random question. What's the useful life of a drone, and what's the maintenance associated with that?
So maintenance-wise, it's just making sure that it's charged and the batteries eventually will, like any battery-operated device, eventually the batteries won't hold charge anymore. So we think useful life will be probably 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
That one's next.
And then it'll be fully insured against, because I know drones have a lot of potential mishaps with what they can run into and some of the scenes that they are. So obviously that'll be insured for full replacement cover in case it has a mishap, right?
I believe so, yeah.
And then how many people in the fire department are going to be trained, Mike?
We're shooting for 4 as well.
Okay, and then be obviously going to NIPSTA for their training, or, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, both.
Any questions from the board? Anybody else? Any questions from the public? Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Dungus?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding with Cook County Sheriff for the participation in the Treatment Response Program?
So moved.
Thank you. Mallory, can you, a little background on this?
So this resolution memorializes an agreement with Cook County Sheriff's Program for their treatment response program, in which they're providing the police department with tablets or iPads that give them 24/7 access to mental health providers to assist with on-scene mental health crises. It's not at any cost to the village, and they have this deployed throughout the county, and so it gives us the ability to give people who might need help or someone to speak with a mental health professional immediately, in real time, and then they do follow up with them afterward to provide follow-up services as necessary. So it's just a great program that's available to the village, and this is the agreement that sets it up.
Terrific. Sounds like a great program. Any questions from the board? Questions from the public? Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Trustee Orth?
Yes.
Trustee Whitaker?
Yes.
Trustee Fowler?
Yes.
Trustee Mendrick?
Yes.
Trustee Gallen?
Yes.
Trustee Dunges?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Departmental reports are provided in your packet. Do the trustees have any questions related to those reports? Hearing none. Mallory, do you have any updates?
I do not.
Patrick, anything from the manager's office?
Thank you. No, we've already covered my items.
Okay. This concludes our business. May I have a motion and a second?
I'd like to make one other public comment. Thank you, Trustee Whitaker, for recognizing both those gentlemen that went down in the Urban Search and Rescue Team. I personally work with Cody Riggins. He's a great guy. Chief Nystrand, he's on the Wilmette Fire Department. He's also on the Northfield. We're lucky to have him. He's very dedicated. Left a couple small children at home for the time he was deployed. So, and I got updates I saw every day on what they were doing. So it's incredible the work that these teams, and it's so cool how MABUS works and that we go and share our resources with other states, not just in the state of Illinois. So it's a great program, and if we ever need to help, I know the other states will help us. So it's great to see us deploying those people, and whatever the cost is, it doesn't matter because those people really were in need and they did a lot of life-saving work. So again, thank you.
But I'm going to clarify, it did not cost the village anything, and if I'm not mistaken, Chief, they went at the capacity of their full-time department.
And we get,
Their departments will be reimbursed.
Right.
The reason I recognized them was just because they are members of our department, so I just clarify if there was any, it's all good.
it's absolutely.
Can I make one more comment?
Sure, Kathy.
Well, first of all, I have a question. The Tower Road Bridge, why is there no fencing up on the Tower Road Bridge?
Good question.
I honestly didn't think they were going to open it until there was fencing up. I don't have a good answer for you.
I mean, that's scary.
Well, I will tell you, I called Patrick the day they opened the road, and he's like, that's impossible, there's no fence up, and they opened up the road.
Yeah.
I was on the bridge at 9 o'clock at night when they were actually moving the barricades off of there, and I called Patrick the next day, and I said, I can't believe it, because if you're on a bike, you could actually, if you get bumped by a
You could
car,
fall.
you're going over. So I still can't believe
Hit a
that
rock,
they
you'll
haven't
go over.
put, you know, any kind of a fencing there. And all the other bridges, because I talked to Patrick about this, measuring bridge heights, when they're talking about doing the Winnetka Avenue Bridge, and all the other bridges have some kind of protective fencing, except for the latest one that they installed. I can't believe that they missed it.
That's our bridge, right?
It's the states, isn't it?
I believe it's a state's bridge, but what
But
we'll
I
do-
meant, it's in Northfield.
Yeah.
I believe so, yes. We'll reach out to them, see if we can get it. We've been trying to get IDOT to replace some fencing that's been damaged too, so Mike Nystrand's got a list going for him, so we'll bring this to their attention. I've walked across it, and I agree, it's a safety concern.
Yeah. And I just want to thank the police department. I was in Mariano's late last week, I think, and there was, I'm not sure what was happening, but the police had somebody down on the ground, and this person was out of control, and our police officers were amazing during the whole thing. And I just want to thank them because they were so professional and did the best that they could to keep everybody away from what was going on, and they did a marvelous job, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathy. Can I have a motion and second to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.